Star Wars has some of the coolest spacefaring vessels in all of sci-fi, from their capital ships to their starfighters. But today we're going to be discussing exactly how they classify their ships in-universe. So kick back as we discuss the Anaxes War College. I often find that there's sometimes confusion between warship classes. In large part, this is due to the Star Wars universe itself not really knowing how exactly it wants to classify its capital ships. There's plenty of contradictions between vessels, from the smaller Corvettes and Frigots to the larger cruisers up to the massive Dreadnoughts. Along with these classifications are other titles like Star Cruiser, Star Destroyer, and Super Star Destroyer. I think it's fair to preface this discussion with the disclaimer, no, not everything is going to fit perfectly within these classes, and Star Wars won't always adhere to the rules of the Anaxes War College. But regardless, I still think it's a good tool to use when looking at the vessels of Star Wars because, well, they're awesome. So why don't we start with the 7 main classifications? Those being the Corvettes, Frigates, Cruisers, Heavy Cruisers, Destroyers, Battle Cruisers, and Dreadnoughts. The first class is one of my favorite. I love Corvettes. They are small and nimble and require minimal crew, but can still pack a fairly modest punch. This class ranges in between 100 and 200 meters in length. Popular models include the Raider-class Corvette, a personal favorite of mine, the always faithful CR-90 Corvette, used primarily by the Rebel Alliance in their fight against the Empire, and you can't forget the Hammerhead Corvette, a legend for using a disabled ISD to destroy another ISD. Frigates, on the other hand, range from 200 to 400 meters in length. Now, if this were Halo, I'd tell you these were my favorite classes, but this is Star Wars, and boy do frigates have some confusing models. Starting with a vessel that doesn't contradict the Anaxes War College, the EF-76 Nebulon B frigate. Once used by the Imperial Navy, many of these frigates would end up in the hands of rebel forces, being used for escort or as medical vessels. Another true frigate is the Pelta-class frigate, and it was similarly used for medical transportation and blockade runs. It's also super weak, so don't throw it into a fight. Now for some popular frigates which technically aren't frigates, the Republic frigate, also referred to as the C-70 Charger. This is a repurposed consular class cruiser and was used by both the Republic Navy in a sport and escort role. Now, both its names are contradictions. Being called a frigate and even a cruiser is kind of crazy when you realize the vessel is only 130 meters in length. So technically it's a Corvette, but it's called a Republic frigate. Moving on to another Clone Wars era vessel, the Munificent class Star Frigate. Again, wrong. This vessel should be considered a heavy cruiser, as its length is 825 meters. Maybe the whole star aspect is supposed to signify that this vessel is much larger than the average frigate, but come on, it's 2 classes up. So yeah, as you can see, the frigates have already shown us just how confusing Star Wars classifications can be. The next class is the good old cruiser class. Popular models include the Arquitens class light cruiser, which is 325 meters, used by Republic forces for various roles, whether that be patrol, capital ship support, or escort. The Arquitens class command cruiser, which is 230 meters, is used by the Imperial Navy, which is of course just an updated version of the Republic model. Although it is smaller, its shields, power output, weapons, and armor were all updated. And then we have the class 546 cruiser, which is a larger Arquitens class command cruiser, sitting at a length of 381 meters, used by the Imperial Navy and Imperial Remnant. It's also a fantastic battering ram. I think that cruisers make fantastic patrol, escort, and support vessels. Most can work in a versatile way, which is of course how they're designed. But we should move on because we got more cruisers. That's right, heavy cruisers are the next classification of vessels. Heavy cruisers are between the length of 600 to 1200 meters. Now, like I mentioned before, Star Wars doesn't always adhere to the rules or classes set in the Anaxes War College. That being said, the heavy cruiser models are kind of all over the place. We should talk about a few of them. For one, you have the legendary Venator-class Star Destroyer. This warship is iconic and one of the most popular models of all time. It could be classified more as a carrier or even cruiser based on its starfighter complement, and of course its weapon systems. You tell me what you think of the Venator class. We all have our opinions on this Star Destroyer. Next, we have another favorite, the Acclamator class assault ship, which sits at 752 meters. Again, its firepower is far from what would truly classify a vessel as a heavy cruiser, but it is fast and an excellent carrier, perfect to deploy massive numbers of soldiers and heavy armor across the galaxy. Another confusing vessel is one that of course doesn't even fit within the size range of a heavy cruiser, that being the Subjugator class heavy cruiser. Now, before you write that comment, the Subjugator class is 4,845 meters. I know, it's definitely more of a battlecruiser. In fact, it is known as a battleship, battlecruiser, dreadnought, heavy cruiser, which is why we're talking about it right now, and star dreadnought. Yes, the longer I make this video, the more I realize that this is a rather confusing subject to talk about. So no, the Subjugator class, despite its name, is not a heavy cruiser. Let's talk about some more legit heavy cruisers. The MC-80 Liberty-type heavy star cruiser is an iconic Rebel Alliance warship, along with its counterpart, the MC-80A Home 1 type heavy star cruiser. Although the Home 1 type is pushing more towards the destroyer classification of vessels, but let's not get into that. Moving on from the nightmare that is the heavy cruiser class, we have destroyers. The destroyer class easily has some of the best and most powerful warships to ever travel through hyperspace or blast their way through the stars. Destroyers are between 1,000 and 2,000 meters in length, and Kuat Drive Yards makes plenty of these, although they like to attach the word star to their ships, so if you're familiar with Star Wars vessels, you'll know which ones we are going to talk about. In fact, let's rattle off a few. The Imperial class Star Destroyer, the biggest and baddest warship of the Imperial Navy, Super Star Destroyers not included. The ISD is iconic both in and out of universe and is truly something to be reckoned with. The Nebula class Star Destroyer, the New Republic's first and best destroyer, designed due to a new modernized defense program. It was built, balanced, and truly devastating. The Gladiator class Star Destroyer, yes, it's small, but the firepower makes it no slouch. Judge it by its size, do you? How about some CIS droid vessels? The Providence class carrier, or destroyer as it is sometimes referred, was one of the best droid warships to fly against the Galactic Republic. It had enough firepower to go broadside to broadside with a Venator, and had more than enough starfighters to provide a strong screen. The Recusant class light destroyer is entirely droid operated and has a handy feature. This feature being a self-destruct function where it would ram into any Republic vessels, preferably the Venator class. We also have the Tector class Star Destroyer, an excellent ship-to-ship slugger. And of course, who could forget the Victory class Star Destroyer, a vessel I severely misjudged and had to make 2 separate videos on. Yeah, it's a pretty sick warship. Also, you should look at this thing. This is the Terminus class destroyer used by the reconstituted Sith Empire. Looks crazy, but I'm kind of a fan. Honestly, destroyers and the often used term Star Destroyer are some of the coolest and most devastating capital ships to ever terrorize the stars. If it isn't clear, I love destroyers, but I need to move on. 2 more classes to go. Up next, the Battle Cruiser. This class was given to vessels between 2,000 and 5,000 meters in length. These are the big boys. For one, we got the Resurgent class Star Destroyer or Battle Cruiser, which sits at a length of 2,916 meters. This vessel is quite the powerhouse despite us never seeing it in action. It has an insane number of turbo lasers, upwards of 1,500 in fact. It also has insanely thick armor, a fortified superstructure, and multi-layered deflector shields. It's a beast, and yes, I know it's a sequel era vessel, so anyways. The Harrower class Dreadnought, oh wait, it's a Dreadnought. That can't be right, it's only 800 meters. Well, that doesn't make it a battle cruiser either, but its firepower does. The Harrower class battle cruiser, as it is more often called, is a beast of its own. The Sith Empire used it to devastating effect during their conflict with the Republic, and it remained in service well past other powerful capital ships. Another fan favorite battle cruiser is the CIS Lucrehulk class battleship. This ring-shaped behemoth came in at 3,170 meters in length and carried waves of droid starfighters and shield generators that could withstand the combined firepower of multiple Venator-class star destroyers. I love the Lucrehulk. It's such a cool design and stands out from the other capital ships. Battle cruisers are nothing to mess with, but we should move on to the final class because these are the baddest of the bad. Dreadnoughts, classified as any vessel 5,000 meters or larger, the deadliest and most feared warships ever constructed. It may surprise no one to learn that many of these models were fielded by the Galactic Empire. Often referred to as Star Dreadnoughts or Super Star Destroyers, these monsters had more firepower than entire star systems and could easily reduce population centers to slag and glass. Not only that, but they could shred through smaller Star Destroyers, heavy cruisers, basically whatever dared face these works of engineering and sheer audacity. Starting off with the Assertor class Star Dreadnought, these vessels often operated as command and control ships for entire sectors of space, which is a massive area. Personally, this is one of my favorite looking models, and it came in at 15,000 meters. The Bellator class Dreadnought is another epic model, much more refined in its aesthetic, but still capable of annihilating just about anything. It came in at a smaller 7,200 meters. The next model looks insanely cool, and it's one of the most well-known, the Executor class Star Dreadnought, often referred to as the Superstar Destroyer. While they definitely have a glaring weakness, these capital ships are the definition of Imperial might. I love the look of the Executor class with its amber engines and prominent arrowhead design. These vessels came in at 19,000 meters, and when compared to an ISD, it really gives you some perspective. The Eclipse class Star Dreadnought was a fascinating model. Built with a super laser as its primary weapon system, the Eclipse class was the next evolution in Imperial conquest, guaranteed to secure the galaxy in the iron fist of the Empire for the next century and beyond. This model was 17,500 meters in length. I will also throw the Subjugator class Star Dreadnought in the mix as more of an honorable mention, as it doesn't quite meet the 5,000 meter requirement and is not nearly as powerful as the previously listed Dreadnoughts. Nevertheless, the Subjugator class is unique and is one of the few Dreadnoughts to possess a super weapon. There you have it, the Anaxes War College, a class system with as many confusing vessels as you could imagine. Again, not everything is one-to-one, and just because something is smaller or has a classification of a much larger vessel doesn't mean it's inherently wrong. Firepower is a huge consideration when listing these capital ships. I hope you enjoyed this video. Of course, if I missed anything, make sure to comment down below. Again, I'm not an expert in real life warship classification or even fictional, and I was certainly not going to list the entire catalog of Star Wars warships. I just thought I would hit the popular ones. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you have not, and blast a like on this video if you enjoyed it. It really helps out. Have an amazing day or night wherever you are in the galaxy, and may the Force be with you.